The idea of a sequel to K-pop, Demon Hunters has fans buzzing with excitement about the possibilities and the new directions for the story of these evil creature-hunting girls. But have you ever thought that there's a huge chance K-pop, Demon Hunters 2, might focus way more on MIRA and ZOEY than the first movie did? Rumi's Rescue. Most likely, a continuation of K-pop. Demon Hunters would have to deal with a pretty interesting dilemma. One of the main focuses would definitely be Rumi, who would probably need to dig into her past. Or maybe she'd have to step into Guima's domain to try and rescue Jinu's soul, which is still being held prisoner by the Demon King. With the help of Derpy and his crow, Jinu actually managed to send out a cry for help to his crush, and that would mean diving straight into the underworld, a place full of mysteries and dangers. Pretty tough. Maybe she ends up being captured by Guima along with Jinu, which could easily set the stage for some unexpected twists. Can you imagine that? Of course, her friends couldn't just sit back and watch. They'd have to go after her. The other two members of the Huntrix would take charge and head down there with Derpy's help to rescue their friend, and probably even Jinu himself. That way, the story would be the perfect chance to give ZOEY and MIRA the spotlight they didn't really get in the first movie. In the original, their character depth wasn't fully explored. Here, they could show internal struggles, identity crises, family dilemmas, and even the challenges of dealing with special powers or inherited legacies. Come on in, because the fun keeps going with another video right here on the channel. Villains. With a sequel, it's obvious new villains would show up, adding even more tension to the plot. Sure, Guima would probably still be the main antagonist. After all, he's the Demon King, and nobody just kicks a king off his throne without a fight. But the real fun could come from the secondary villains, who would show up to challenge MIRA, ZOEY, and Rumi in different ways. These antagonists might even have direct ties to the girls' past, maybe distant relatives who don't exactly like them. Imagine the tension of facing someone from your own family who, instead of supporting you, tests and challenges everything you've learned. These secondary villains would stir up both internal and external conflicts, forcing each character to grow and confront their insecurities. For ZOEY, that would mean dealing with her need to control everything and please everyone. For MIRA, facing her loneliness and learning to trust others, and for Rumi, strengthening her leadership skills and courage. On top of that, this kind of storyline would allow for more complex relationships between the characters, showing that danger doesn't always come from outside. The past. The K-pop. Demon Hunters movie left us with more questions than answers. We only got to see the hunters in action. Nothing about their childhoods, zero flashbacks. Nothing from that stage of life that could explain why they are the way they are. We were left in the dark, with only a few tiny crumbs hidden as Easter eggs in the Shine music video. For example, there are some clues about ZOEY. She spent her childhood split between California and South Korea because her parents didn't get along at all. You can already picture the chaos, right? English class in the morning, kimchi for lunch, parents arguing at dinner. MIRA, on the other hand, always looked very different from her super traditional parents, even when she was little. But the biggest question is, how were these girls chosen to be hunters in the first place? Was it like some supernatural K-pop audition? Did judges give out scores for high notes at karaoke and demon hunting skills? Or was it more like Hogwarts, with a hat? And another thing, how did they meet Celine and Rumi and decide to form the team? Was it instant friendship? Or did it have that awkward girl group vibe where you only start to get along after a survival reality show? These are exactly the unanswered gaps that keep fans scratching their heads and begging for a sequel to finally reveal everything. Because, let's be honest, nobody's happy not knowing how this group became the K-pop Demon Hunters. Before diving deeper into what K-pop Demon Hunters 2 might look like, drop a comment below. MIRA.
Huh?
Family. One really curious detail is ZOEY's complicated relationship with her own family. Since she was a kid, she lived through a cultural identity crisis so intense that even a psychologist would break a sweat trying to explain it. After all, it can't be easy being Korean while living in the United States. The result? A crack in her identity. Like she never truly had a place she could call her own. In the Shine music video, this conflict becomes even clearer. We see ZOEY torn between her parents, which could very well mean they actually separated. That left her feeling even more out of place, without a stable foundation. It was as if she constantly had to juggle plates, pleasing one side then the other, and never having the time to just be ZOEY. On top of that, the video shows her alone, writing songs and sketching strange creatures that look a lot like demons. That raises a pretty dark question. Did she already have some idea about demons even before becoming a hunter? Or was it just that kind of moody teen hobby that nobody really understands until it turns into a problem? MIRA, on the other hand, has had pink hair since childhood. Unlike boy bands that dye their hair just to slay on stage, in her case it seemed natural. And that opens the door for a pretty wild theory. Could she have a demonic origin? After all, in the story we've seen other characters with colorful hair who turned out to be demons. And let's be honest, MIRA never really looked much like her parents. It's as if she was adopted and carried an even deeper secret in her roots. And if that wasn't enough, there are rumors that as a child she rebelled so much that she ended up hurting someone. That could have been the reason for her being excluded from her family, like a stain they wanted to cover up. If true, that wouldn't just explain her loneliness, but also why destiny led her to become a hunter. After all, who better to fight monsters than someone who always felt like one? Hunters. But seriously, how did ZOEY, MIRA, and the others actually become hunters? That's the golden question the movie left unanswered, and it's exactly where fans started connecting the dots and building theories that could easily fill another full-length film. In ZOEY's case, the most popular theory is that her mom was once part of the legendary Solar Sisters, a musical group that Celine was also part of, which seemed to have way more than just talent for singing and dancing. The first clue comes from the hairstyle. One of the members wore her hair parted in a way identical to ZOEY's, so striking that it's hard to believe it was a coincidence. On top of that, ZOEY was seen, while still very young, carrying a Solar Sisters album. But not with that vibe of being a super fan. It was more like someone carrying a piece of family history. Many believe that album was more than just a record. It might have held coded messages, hidden memories, or even sheet music that doubled as magical spells. The family drama also ties into this theory. Legend has it ZOEY's mom was scarred by the trauma of losing a friend. Rumi's mother. During a battle she simply couldn't stop. Devastated by guilt, she fled to the United States, trying to start over in silence. But living with that secret weighed too heavily. The result? An unstable relationship, constant running, and of course, a divorce that shook ZOEY as a child. For many fans, that explains why she always seemed lost between worlds, never feeling at home in either. That's why Celine would have chosen ZOEY. It wasn't random, and it definitely wasn't by chance. It was about legacy. She carried something in her blood, something that made her worthy of continuing the work her mother abandoned. It was like destiny was pulling her in, whether she wanted it or not. But if ZOEY's story is already full of twists, MIRA's might be even darker. There's a strong theory that MIRA has a demonic connection. That's right. While ZOEY inherited a solar legacy, MIRA might actually carry the mark of darkness within her. The curious part is that MIRA never shows any signs, symbols, or markings that tie her to anything. Some say that's exactly because she learned to hide them. After all, revealing that part of herself could put her in danger. And we can't forget the most glaring detail, the hair. Only MIRA and Rumi have naturally colored hair since childhood. That's not K-pop fashion, and it's not dye for the spotlight. It's natural, part of who they are. Many fans point out that in the entire K-pop Demon Hunters universe, characters with colored hair always have some connection to the supernatural. If that's true, then MIRA and Rumi weren't just chosen. They'd be hybrids, carrying both human essence and something demonic inside them. In the end, what fans believe is that the group of hunters wasn't formed purely by chance, friendship, or training. Each one of them was pulled together by a greater force: family legacy, genetics, hidden secrets, or even demonic blood. And it's exactly this puzzle that makes everyone beg for a second movie. Because seriously, who can sleep soundly without knowing if ZOEY is really the daughter of a former solar sister, if MIRA carries demon DNA, and if all of this was actually a grand plan orchestrated by Celine from the very beginning? If you're not part of it yet, subscribe to the channel and hang out with us in every video. Protagonist. Without a doubt, a sequel would bring a totally different perspective compared to the first movie, adding more depth to the plot, and showing the growth of characters who haven't had as much spotlight yet. In Rumi's case, we've already noticed that she matured a lot by breaking away from Celine's ideas, the ones saying she shouldn't accept herself and needed to hide. She started to understand herself better and make her own decisions, and that alone was already a huge step forward. However, the same can't really be said for ZOEY and MIRA, who had very little space to show any real evolution in the first film. For the audience, it would be fascinating to see these two protagonists grow, face their insecurities, and deal with their own inner struggles. ZOEY, for instance, could explore more of her perfectionist side and the pressure of always having to please everyone, showing that being the perfect one isn't always as easy as it looks. MIRA's growth would be a little different. She grew up feeling like she never truly had a real family by her side. That constant sense of loneliness explains so much of her reserved posture, those "don't mess with me" looks, and the bottled-up anger that hides her deepest feelings. New allies. And since we're talking about new villains, why not think about new allies too? Just picture it. ZOEY, MIRA, and Rumi finally finding reinforcements on the right side, like the Saja boys, ready to help them face their new challenges. These allies wouldn't just increase the group's strength. They could also create moments of tension, humor, and even unexpected friendship. And of course, with new allies joining in, the fan-favorite couples could finally happen. But here's the big question. Will MIRA feel torn between Abby and romance? Many fans are rooting for her to end up with romance, mainly because it would balance out her serious, controlled vibe, letting us see a lighter and more playful side of her character. ZOEY, on the other hand, seems to already have her heart mapped out by the fans. Everyone wants to see her with mystery. The chemistry between them is basically undeniable, especially since she and baby Sarah have absolutely nothing in common: powers. In the movie, we see Rumi awaken a new power, becoming a more complete hunter and more confident in her abilities. It would be amazing if, in the sequel, MIRA and ZOEY had a similar moment, unleashing new abilities or discovering strengths they didn't even know they had. Just imagine the impact that would have on the story. ZOEY facing her fears and learning to trust herself more, finally revealing all of her inner strength. MIRA, who always carried the weight of feeling alone, discovering powers that connect her to others and give her a real sense of belonging. That kind of evolution wouldn't just make the story more exciting, it would also bring depth and protagonism to the characters who had so little chance to shine in the first film. In the end, a sequel to K-pop, Demon Hunters could be so much more than battles and supernatural powers. It would be an opportunity to deeply explore the growth of ZOEY, MIRA, and Rumi, while also revealing long-hidden secrets from the past. If you're a fan of animations, take a look at these two videos you're going to love. Thanks for being with us, and see you soon!